This podcast is a little bit noisy because it was recorded in Times Square, New York City, which is where I met Ryan.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to The Breakdown, deFORMULA's podcast, where we deconstruct the college formula for you. I'm here today with Ryan, who's going to be a rising junior at Stanford University studying symbolic systems artificial intelligence. Ryan, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, pleasure.
So Ryan is from Manhasset, New York, and graduated high school from Manhasset Secondary School. He was captain of his varsity fencing team and a National Merit finalist and scholar. So I know the West Coast is known to have a completely different culture from the East Coast in terms of lifestyle, such as being a lot more chill and less competitive than the East Coast, which is known to be quote unquote like cutthroat. So what are your thoughts on that?
Sure, yeah. It's definitely, something that's really apparent once you step onto campus. So everybody at Stanford is very friendly, and I've never really had a class where I felt like I'm competing against other people. The only really competition is me competing against myself and asking friends to study together, asking for help whenever, and providing help whenever I can. And so that's a huge, cultural difference between Stanford and the other schools on the East Coast, and that's definitely something that's been really great to have.
That sounds really cool. So Stanford is also known for having duck syndrome. Can you tell us a little bit what that's like and if that's even true?
Sure. So duck syndrome is essentially, ducks, they seem like they're, floating on the surface peacefully, but underwater they're paddling really hard to stay afloat. And, honestly, that is true. People always seem like they're having the greatest time of their life, but when you actually dig deep into it, people are working super hard whenever you don't see them at social events, and they're always working to improve on themselves in a non-competitive manner, which I really love. And duck syndrome isn't really that bad. It's just what it takes, the grind it takes to make it.
Nice. So you're also a teaching assistant at Stanford School of Engineering. Can you tell us what that's like and what exactly you do?
Sure. So I'm a teaching assistant for our School of Engineering's public speaking program. And so what that's like is, I teach students from undergrads to graduate students to business school students, how to effectively communicate their ideas in the best way possible and give them tips and tricks to, navigating public speaking.
Very cool. So are most of the classes at Stanford taught by professors or like TAs like yourself?
So I can't really think about any classes that's not really taught by a professor, any major classes. So how most classes are structured is you'll have lecture and the professor will teach that lecture, and once a week you'll break up into section where the TAs explain everything to you, go over concepts, and make sure your understanding of that topic is ingrained. And so it's a really great mix of getting information from the source at lecture, but really also solidifying your understanding of it with fellow students or graduate students.
That's great to hear. So Ryan, you're a young entrepreneur and you just recently launched your own company called New Fare, which helps college students find cheap, low-fare travel flights. So can you tell us a little bit more about your New Fare company and how you got this idea?
Sure. So it's very interesting because, normally people travel by, finding one-way flights or a round-trip flight. But what many people don't know is that airlines have something called multi-city tickets, specifically open-jaw tickets. So what that means is you can find, a flight from New York to London, and instead of, returning to New York via London, you'll return via Paris. And so that is all in the same ticket, and many airlines will price that super, super cheap. And so we're leveraging that, and in addition, the evolution of millennial travel to unconventional destinations, and we're piecing together really interesting itineraries for students to explore non-conventional places at half the cost. And so if you're really interested in travel, want to see what your options are, make sure to check out newfaretravel.com, which is NUFARE travel.com.
For sure. So Stanford is known for being a school to cultivate student entrepreneurs' interests. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think Stanford helped you develop this idea and with your startup?
Sure. So I don't think it helped me develop the idea per se, but Stanford has so many incredible resources for an entrepreneur to succeed. So statistically, there's probably less than a 1% chance of a startup succeeding. But at Stanford, they give you all these different tools at hand, people that you can talk to, networks that you can reach out to, different entrepreneurial programs like StartX, to really launch yourself, in a good position once you start. And so, a lot of other people are working on like entrepreneurial projects, just like you are. And, it's definitely a really good place to be at an early stage.
Yeah, so Brian, you're part of Stanford's ski team, which sounds amazing. Can you tell us what that's like?
Sure. So I was only part of the ski team in my freshman year.
Okay.
And so I would go up sometimes. I wasn't a racer, but having that community and being able to go to Tahoe and ski whenever I wanted to was really fun.
How often were you going up?
Probably only 3 or 4 times, winter quarter.
Okay.
But still every other weekend.
Awesome. So to wrap things up, what would you say are your favorite 3 things about Stanford?
Right, so number one, and this will always be the number one thing about Stanford, is the people. And so this may sound cliche, but the people at Stanford, they're so different. Everyone's diverse. They come from different backgrounds, different interests, and bringing all these perspectives into one place, creates such a community of support and understanding of different world perspectives. And so I guess number 2 thing about Stanford is just the opportunities that it has offered me. So taking all the classes that I want to do, giving me a flexible schedule to combine the core activities that I have to do, but also explore my interests as well outside of my major, and also like doing clubs and having time to play basketball on the side has been really amazing. And last thing, this is a little surface level thing, but the weather is amazing. The campus is amazing. And, it never gets old just biking around from your dorm through the main quad to class in the engineering quad. It's always a beautiful bike ride. And, every day I'll, stop in front of Memorial Church and be like, hey, wow, I made it here. Just take a step back and say, wow, this has been great.
That sounds really cool. So to finish, what would you say is the single most important thing you would tell your high school self?
I would tell my high school self to, chill out a little bit. Throughout, elementary, middle, high school, I was, always worried about this one goal, which was getting into Stanford. And, at the point where, I finally got in, that transition between senior year and college, I didn't know what to do because I had already, gotten into college. But it really isn't about, where you go to college. It's more about, what work ethic you develop, what attitude you develop throughout high school, and, how you approach different problems. At the end of the day, academically, what you're doing is solving problems. How you're going to progress through your career is, how do you work on a team well? How do you communicate well? How do you translate your analytics into something tangible? And so I believe these skills, these soft skills, but also these attitudes are much, much more important than what school you end up going to.
It was a pleasure having you on The Breakdown. And thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to come back soon and we'll keep deconstructing the college formula.
You can download deFORMULA on the iOS store to meet with a college student on campus or through video chat. For more information, you can check out our website at deFORMULA, which is deformula.com. If you're interested in a feature on The Breakdown, email us at thebreakdown@deformula.com.